What does it actually take to listen to your heart and act on the dreams that are important to you? You may have a project, a passion, a business, a life move, a movement you've been dreaming of creating. And perhaps that project has been like a beach ball that you've been pushing down into the water, perhaps not allowing yourself to do it, not giving yourself permission to act on it. Maybe you've encountered self-doubt or resistance or fear of what will happen if I go after that big dream. And this is a passion of mine, whether it's been through business coaching over the last 20 plus years, helping women step into whether it's getting to seven figures or creating a new business, or maybe it's in their life, helping them move across the world or put something big out there. This is a passion of mine. And a big topic here in the Fabienne Show is really looking at your heart and boldly going after that big dream. And this is why I invited my very good friend, Maya Marcia Wieder, to come in and share with us what is the process for going from dream to action, and how do we overcome the resistance that shows up? Now, if you're not familiar with Maya Marcia Wieder, she is and has been for over 30 years the CEO of Dream University. She has literally helped millions of people follow their dreams. She's been on Oprah a couple of times. She's the author of 15 books on this topic of dreaming and achieving your dreams. She's worked with 3 US presidents, and she really knows her stuff. And I happen to be very close friends with her, and I asked her to join us and really take us through the process of giving life, giving birth to our dreams. I think you're going to really love this one, and she has a gift for us at the end. So let's dive in. Maya, I am super moved to be recording this episode with you on so many different levels. So first of all, welcome. It's so delicious to have you here. And you are actually my very first guest expert interview on the podcast. And I wanted it that way for so many reasons. I don't really have tears in my eyes already, do I? Welcome, Maya. I'm so glad that you're here with me.
I'm delighted to be here with you.
You mean so many things to me. You are such a dear friend. I remember asking you when we first started getting close, would you please be my big sister? And I respect and admire you, what you stand for, your career, all the incredible things that you've been able to accomplish, all the impact that you've made. How many people do you think you've touched in your career? Is there even a number?
A few 100,000, maybe?
Yeah.
Millions if you count Oprah appearances.
How many times were you on Oprah?
Just twice.
Just twice, everybody. So you've impacted millions of people, and I count myself very lucky to have you here, to have you in my life, and to have you here because you, as I see it, I called you this the other day, you are the reigning queen of making your dreams come true. Would you take us back to how being the ambassador of reaching your dreams, how did that all start for you in the first place?
Well, first of all, thank you for all that beautiful recognition. It's so fun. We're actually down the street from each other in Paris. Just to let people in on a little secret. You know, the way that we're wounded often informs our life and our purpose. And I grew up with an older sister that was quite handicapped. So my family actually, now may they all rest in peace, they're all gone.
As of recently, very recently.
Yeah, it's been a lot. It's been a lot over the last few years. They were fairly hopeless. And at some level, unconsciously, I became Susie Hope. I became I believe in you, you can do it, go for it. And at some point, I believed it.
Fake it till you make it.
I wrote my first book in the early 90s and did get a lucky break being invited to be on Oprah with that book. And I wrote that book because I believed, I had a hunch that I had something to say. And in my heart, I held it as a correspondence course with God. And I tell many people who used to come to me, I don't do this anymore, to help them find their message and write their talk, to write down 10 things that you think, know, or believe on a topic that you're passionate about. And I had 15 and it got edited down to 12, and I didn't want it to be a 12-step program. So I got it down to 10. And those 10 key points, taking away anything that was jargony or that I felt like I got from someone else, those 10 key points became the foundation for a long and delicious career. It became my keynote. It became a couple of TED Talks. It became my dream coach training and certification. It became my first book and the foundation for many books after that. And the more I wrote it and started incorporating my stories and other people's stories, the more it took hold. And the more I became that. And then when people start to, you know this one, identify you as that. People started calling me Oprah's coach. I am not Oprah's coach. I was never Oprah's coach. So I can set the record straight yet again. But I was on the show once very early on and once much later as the passion expert. And as the passion expert, it was just Oprah and I sitting on the stage talking to people about pursuing their passion. And it was very meaningful to be recognized as something that I imagined I someday might be. And I guess that's kind of the short story of how I became that.
What was the name of that first book that lays out the 10 steps?
Or earth-shattering, making your dreams come true. But you know what? It's still the foundation. I ultimately got it down to 3 steps. CBA, right? School, we learn ABCs. Dream University, we teach CBA. Get clear about your dreams, believe in your dreams, take action on your dreams. And even the last book that I wrote that was simply called Dream, it's got a funny first line. It said, it took me 15 books to realize that dream is a verb. And of course, it's also a noun. But when I got that it really is a verb, that it's a way of being and a way of living, that became the impetus for me to walk away, to move to Rome for a few years, then Lisbon, and now Paris. And I think for me, it's very much how I want to live my life. I want to live my life as a dreamer who can continually ask, how do I want my life to be? And what's important to me, and even what is mine to do. And that's been a guiding principle for me personally and professionally that has served me well.
I'd love your take on this. I feel like that is my life.
Yeah, that is your life.
That's
why we're sisters.
Yeah. This idea, I know that some people have told me they're very inspired by how I just kind of follow my dreams and follow my passion, and they don't always make sense to other people. And some people have criticized me in the past by saying, well, isn't it ever enough?
Huh. I've never heard that.
Isn't it? Aren't you happy by now? Right?
Oh my gosh, that's such an interesting reflection of them on you.
Yeah.
Strike me as somebody who ever lives from a place of lack and not enough. You strike me as someone who has a real appreciation for so much, and you live an abundant mindset, which then translates into an abundant lifestyle. So I don't feel like you or I are coming from a place of lack or scarcity, although that can certainly pop up at different times. It's human being belief number one, I don't have enough blank time, money of me to go around. But, I don't think that's your motive. I know that's not your motivation.
No, I think it's people projecting their own feelings of maybe inadequacy or being stuck. I talk about this actually every once in a while, that I find that some people that I know actually personally, who look at life as if the dealer gave them a certain set of, 5 cards, whether, I don't know, blackjack, poker, who knows? But let's just say the dealer gives you 5 cards and you're like, okay,
that's my hand.
My cards. That's my hand. And I'm always thinking, yeah, I'll keep these 2. Dealer, I'll take another 3 cards, please. And I remember when we didn't know each other while I was living in the States, at least not very well. But I had this big house, right? 10,000 square foot house, the 4 cars, the yacht club, the beach, all the things that you can imagine. And I mean, really, I had it all. And this podcast is about having it all, whatever all means to you. And what I realized is that all of that, I achieved like what I thought was the pinnacle. And it was somebody else's having it all.
Mm.
It wasn't really what having it all meant to me, even though it was a delicious life. I felt like something was missing. And not from this place of lack, but how good can I have it in this lifetime? And where do I stop and why? And I remember this one person said, "You're moving to Paris?"
I get that a lot.
Yeah. We should talk about that in a few moments. And I was like, yeah, we're going to move to Paris for 1 year. And they looked around and they said, "But don't you have it all here? Like, why go for more?" I'm like, well, there's more to feel. There's more to experience. This is a dream that I've had, right? So that's staying on the topic of dreams. And you've worked with hundreds of thousands of people directly and indirectly. Where do people stop themselves from going after their dreams?
Well, there's so many good points to punctuate in what you just shared. I will say the last program that I created, the gift that we're going to give to your listeners later, was when I started making the distinction of moving from how to create, how to make a dream come true, into living as a creator. And there's one is a state of being and one is a state of doing. We can leave it at that. The number one way that people sabotage their dreams is they project their fears and doubts into the dream with 3 little words. But what if? But what if I pursue the dream and I fail? But what if I go for it and it's not really what I want? But what if I invest in myself and I lose my money? And, if you're loaded your dream with your worst fears and nightmares, every time you take a step toward the dream, it becomes scary and unattainable. And I see people do it all the time. I mean, the simple fix for it is take a piece of paper, split it in half, write the dream on the top, write your reality on the bottom. Your reality includes any fears or doubts that you might have, which are real and reasonable. And then you get to decide, are you more committed to your dream or your doubt, fear, or reality? And if your dream is loaded with your worst nightmares, you'll be more committed to your reality. Also, if you don't have a dream, most of us live our lives in problem solving mode. Something's wrong, let's fix it. And when we're in survival, which many people are, or we're in that mindset, it's hard to start to say, well, what do I really want? And how do I really want my life to be? And of course, what am I willing to do about it? The comment that I get from people about moving, especially as I walked away from my business at the top of my business because I started wondering, what else is there? Kind of, just because I'm good at something doesn't mean it's the only thing I'm here to do. And I moved away. I changed my name. I started painting. I opened up new aspects of myself, which weren't always easy because it also required looking at some challenging parts of myself that I hadn't really seen. It was one thing when I was the dream queen and I had a community and a platform and a list. And it was another thing when I was just me. And then after 8 years of more in a hermit phase, I felt socially awkward coming back out. People can't believe this when I tell them. I just took one of those personality tests where I used to be an ENTJ and now I'm an INFP. Like every single thing changed. And I'm kind of like, wow, I really am in the process of transforming. But the thing that I would get from people is, gosh, you're so brave. You're so courageous. And it didn't live for me like that. I didn't feel afraid. I felt enthusiastic and excited and even thrilled about moving to the unknown. I had always dreamed of living in Italy. So I followed the dream. And then people would say, well, how long do you think you'll live there? And I'm kind of like, well, until I want to live someplace else, I guess,
Yeah.
And Italy was hard to make friends. I mean, Rome was fabulous for de-identifying from who I had become. Shopping in pasta and gelato go a long
Yeah.
way.
Eat, pray, love, baby.
traveling all over Italy, it was spectacular, but it was a little lonely. And then I kept making friends from Lisbon. So I moved to Lisbon. COVID came, my loss of my parents. And Lisbon, well, I had community, but I didn't have the lifestyle and the aesthetic that I really wanted. So each time the move, it's been 3 years in each place. So it's not like an overnight thing. But, I'm not somebody who would be like, well, let me go try it for a week. I'm sort of like, well, let me move. You were here. That made a huge difference to me. You introduced me to so many wonderful people. And I have a thriving community here, and we share our resources, which I'm so grateful for. People are already asking me, how long will you stay in Paris? I'm like, I'm happy here. Why would I think about going somewhere else? What I'm interested in is evolving into more of who I am. I was recently in Provence, where you have your beautiful second home, and it was so gorgeous. But when I was walking around, I couldn't imagine living there full time, because as a New York or San Francisco girl, I need theater and art and community and stuff to do.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's a long answer to your good question.
I appreciate a lot of it. And I appreciate that you made the decision to move to Paris from Lisbon after 2 dinners.
They were very good dinners. One was at your house. If you're ever in Paris, try to get an invite to the delicious life happening at Fabienne's home. First of all, I came in the winter. It was snowing one day. It was wet and cold. I did not know about the weather in Paris, so that's been the biggest thing to get it. Everybody says, it's not typically like this. I hear this every day.
Literally, if you're listening to this, we had from October to June, it literally rained every day. And I kept thinking about Maya every day, like, oh my God, I just want her to know it doesn't rain every day normally. Everyone talked about how it never rains this much.
40 years. I hope I didn't bring it. But even in walking around in the snow, it was Christmas time. I spontaneously cried 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
I cried at Opera Garnier, magnificently beautiful. I cried at Hotel de Ville, that was decorated for Christmas decorations. And I cried at L'Orangerie, which you and I also went to, sitting and having the Monets around me. And I realized I was so deeply moved by beauty, and that over time had become one of my top values in life. That's why I love Provence so much beauty. And I wanted to live in a beautiful place. When people say, why did you come to Paris? I say, for the beauty.
Yeah. And I remember during one of the dinners, because we had dinner on a Friday night, I think it was my place was Friday night and then David's place was Saturday, or it was vice versa. Nonetheless, I remember you saying to the table, where I want to move next is a place that is beautiful. And inside my head, I'm like, well, I don't know if it gets more beautiful than Paris, but save your aces, Fabienne, put them out later. But this idea of living, this is a big thing. You know that I do Provence retreats called A Delicious Life. And it's this concept where we explore for a week in between the lavender fields and sitting, eating under a tree outside. The conversation with that.
Not just a tree, but like the tree from Avatar.
Yeah.
Like
my 200-year-old tree.
Yeah. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
But yeah, no. And this idea, of what is my delicious life? What is this? How good can I have it? And what does having it all mean to me? It doesn't necessarily mean the big house, the 4 cars, the yacht club, and all that. That's what I learned in moving here. In fact, I live so much more simply here than I ever did, because authenticity is a value for me.
Yes.
And beauty is a value for you. And as I take our women through their delicious life in Provence experience, we look at different aspects. And so as you're listening to this, dear podcast listener, I want you to think about, what are your values as opposed to what success means to someone else? And is your value freedom? How much freedom do you have in your life, right? So for you, Maya, your value is beauty. And while Lisbon is beautiful, there was a new level of beauty for me, a new level of authenticity. And so this idea of, I really appreciate the distinction you're making today, is a dream is not just a noun. A dream is a verb, but you are also a dreamer and a creator. And this idea of being, whether it's brave, I've been called fearless, and no, it's not true. I am not fearless. I have fears. I may not listen to them for as long as other people do, right? Which could be years. For me, I've learned how to shorten that and use the what if that you mentioned in a different way. Like, everybody's always talking about what if it won't happen, but I'm flipping it around and say, but what if it does?
It's so good.
What if,
Also the other thing you're touching on, Fabienne, I just want to name it for myself, is discernment. I don't know that there's any skill that has changed my life as much as that, because I love that you're talking about using your values to decide what you want, and also using your values to decide what you don't want.
yeah,
I
say more
think,
about this, because when we first dove deep into our friendship, you were telling me about how much discernment has helped you shape your life. Please take us into that.
yeah, the ability to say no more, no thank you, or even hell no, I think gives us some space and flexibility and freedom to say, now what? Now what really matters to me? And I encourage you to look at places in your life where you're complaining, where you feel drained, where something is sucking the life out of you because you might be out of integrity with your own heart and soul. And let's face it, the dream that we have in our 20s, 30s, even 40s usually aren't the same dreams that we have in our 50s, 60s, and beyond. So this ability to say, no, that doesn't support me anymore, is going to free up a lot of space. So I remember I was trying to move more from, I know this is a common thing, and you're speaking about it more and more as well, that especially with powerful, ambitious, successful women, the first part of our life is often very much based in the masculine, achieve, accomplish, make stuff happen. And part of my thinking behind Dream University was to move that more down into our hearts, a softer, even I would say more feminine space, although I've worked with lots of men and in corporations as well. But I remember thinking I wanted an acronym for remembering my discernment practice. And the acronym that I came up with for business was FEM, F-E-M.
Mm.
Fun, easy, make money. And by the way, on the altruistic side, it could be fulfilling, energizing, meaningful. At a
Right.
personal self-care, it could be food, exercise, meditation. I mean, it really became, you can hear, I've used it for years until it became a natural part of my way of being. And I would run something through the filter. So maybe I would get invited to an exciting opportunity, to speak in some far off land. Well, yeah, it's going to make money, but is it going to be fun and easy? So I decided it had to be at least two of the three. It could be fun and easy, make money. And look, you're in charge. So you ultimately have veto power, and you can just decide you want to go because you want to go. But I have found the more discerning I have become around everything, around what I'm eating, about how I'm spending my day, about who I'm spending my time with, but mostly the decisions that I'm making for how I want to live my life. That's formed me into more of the dreamer that I like to be. Like, it's become more of my natural state by clearing away, peeling off, and getting more in alignment with integrity at a heart and soul level. It's helped me know myself better as well. So that's kind of the short.
I think you're bringing up something, it's stirring something in me, and you've heard me talk about this, and I've mentioned it here before, is this idea that women are often raised, reared, and are socialized to be people pleasers and to take care of the needs of others before our own, repeatedly, all day long. And this idea of discernment fits really nicely with what I invite. I'm really always looking at this for myself, but I invite especially the women who work with me is to say, where are you coming from a place of obligation rather than choice? And what are you tolerating in your life, right? Like Life Coach 101, make a list of tolerations. I put that in my first book, is really looking at, it could be anything from just like a hole that you have in your dress to a marriage, to your job, to where you live, and this idea of discernment is really fitting in with this. A lot of people are not living their dream life because they're tolerating and they are stuck in obligation and the what about me? When is it going to be my time? When is it going to be my turn? Or I see all these women walking through their lives like a zombie and asking themselves, is this really all there is to life? And not enough discernment. And I'm just going to call it courage too. Yeah. Is it bravery? Is it courage? Is it having a bold heart? Is it being fearless, or is it just having it, or is it just self-care?
Such a good question. I really do think it is self-care. I think it really comes down to this is your life. And based on what we know for certain, it may be the only time that we have here. And it's how do you want to use your time? And probably the people that are projecting on you that, isn't it selfish, are the people that aren't taking the time to feel into their own heart, to feel what is it they really need for themselves, and I think it is self-care.
Yeah. I took a session yesterday with a medical intuitive who was basically communicating with my spirit guides throughout the entire session. And she said, Fabienne, you are a gate opener. And I was like, wow, I'd never heard that about myself. And I equated it to being someone who says, okay, dream a bigger dream for yourself. I have futuristic as one of my strengths. So I can usually see a bigger future for someone than they can see for themselves, which is, I think, why I've been a good business coach for so long, is that people will come in with a nice little goal or a nice little dream, and I'll put them on the Fabienne stretcher. This is what you could do instead. And what happens is when you put someone on the Fabienne stretcher, or the Maya dream stretcher, is that all the fears come up, all the beliefs come up, or at least that's what I've seen with my people. And it's about changing the beliefs. It's about changing the fears, and then just giving yourself permission. The permission to follow the dream, the permission to go after the goal. And I can't tell you how many, what feels like hundreds of women coming up to the mic at my event saying, Fabienne, I just want you to give me permission to XYZ. And my answer is always the same. You don't need my permission to do XYZ. But if you want it, you have it. And they're like, okay, yeah, I want you to give me permission. I'm like, you have permission. And that's that gate to open. Yeah. And that's that.
I had a magical Marcia table.
Tell me about that.
People would come to my home. They would spend the day together. I think we called it a visionary strategy day. And they would come with an intention, and I would help them clarify their vision, which, as you said, would then drive up their doubts and limiting beliefs. And I would show them that every obstacle they could imagine is either an internal belief, something they believe about themselves, their dream or life, or something that requires a strategy or a plan. And then we would spend the afternoon mapping out a mini strategy. And what I discovered is a lot of people were stuck in a very old model. They would say, I need you to help me create an opt-in gift for my funnel. And I'm like, well, why? It's not the only way to go. There are other ways to go. Like, write out 10 things you think, know, or believe about what you're passionate about. And I can show you how to be an infopreneur. And it's not about necessarily going that route. But the other thing that I discovered, Fabienne, is that people would often climb to the top of the mountain only to discover it was the wrong mountain.
Yeah.
That they wouldn't look at their purpose, their mission, their calling. And my first book, I think my first 2 or 3 books were a lot about, one exercise to find your purpose. Think of 3 times in your life that you were passionate, look for a common thread. The last book that I wrote that we'll give away for free as part of this course, in one chapter talks about 5 ways to find your purpose. And I think purpose is really inherent to fulfillment and to happiness. And I don't think it's a needle in a haystack thing. I think we're born with it and we have either forgotten or covered it up or lost our way.
Or we take it for granted
So good. Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it comes easily, right?
It's kind of like what hand, right? So I mean, I think you can look at the beginning of your life, like how were you wounded and how did that form your life view? I think you can look at the end of your life, like what are the few words that you would want to put on your tombstone? I think you can look at the middle of your life, like what are you passionate about, and look for threads. I think you can go on a passion quest and discover who you are and what is it you love, or you can ask God.
How do you ask God?
Yeah, so this is the direct access method. And for probably 30 years of my life, I've journaled with God. So in a journal, it would be M for Maya, G for God. And I would just use the journaling process. There's lots of different ways, but I would ask good questions. And whenever I would take people through this exercise, initially, there would always be a few who would say, but aren't I asking and answering the questions? And I wanted to tell them, you are God, So one level, yes, but I've asked my deepest questions through this process and have gotten the deepest answers, especially when by the way, you can journal with any part of you. So it could be M for Maya, D for doubter. The doubter that thinks my dream is a bad idea. It will give me my list of obstacles. Every obstacle is either a belief or a strategy. If it's a belief, I have to do some inner work or hire you to help me work through my limiting beliefs, or design a simple strategy to build up some muscle and some capacity. But I think when people get to that point, I know you've seen it 100 times, when they really realize and understand that what's stopping them from pursuing their dream or sometimes even having the dream is often some small core belief that they don't even necessarily believe anymore. It's
Yeah.
become habitual, it's become stuck, it's become a pattern. And there's this moment of, oh my God, and I've had those moments as well, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I never saw that before. But now that I'm seeing it, let me try taking a different action, which
Yeah.
will then give me a different outcome. Like, I don't know, it's such an interesting thing. But I did this course online with Michael Singer, the guy who wrote
Mhm.
Uncontrolled, and
Yeah. And the surrender experiment. Yeah.
he's got a wonderful video course about living a surrendered life. And he says there's only three things that mess with you: your thoughts, your feelings, and life.
Small things.
But when you start to become aware, and people like us, you and I have been on a path of personal growth and development and spiritual awakening the majority of our life. And still we continue to seek teachers, and you're a voracious reader. And I still attend seminars, and because I'm always learning, and I have learned this wasn't always the case. I'm delighted when I discover something about myself that I didn't know. And especially if it's something that's been holding me back. Now I have a minute of rolling my eyes and like, I can't believe it. And then it's kind of like, oh, a little more liberation. Like, let me use this knowledge and understanding for taking a risk and trying something new. I think for me, the overarching practice is to trust myself more fully.
Mm.
Because the more I trust myself, the bigger I'll dream. It doesn't necessarily, like you said, house and cars bigger, but bigger, the bigger I'll dream, the more I'll take risks, the more I'll live in integrity with my heart and soul. And basically, the happier I'll be.
Mm. I like this idea of trust yourself.
Oh, yeah.
And I think for me, it's been accept myself. And I'll put forth why it's been really helpful for me, because I had very, very low self-esteem and very, very low self-worth. In fact, my first book, Embrace Your Magnificence, was really a course in self-worth and self-esteem. I didn't know it as I was writing it. But what I've learned about going after my dreams or big goals that makes it okay if I don't make it, like what if it's the biggest mess up? What if it just doesn't happen and I hurt myself or I hurt people along the way or whatever? The way I look at it is, if it all fails, at the end, I've got me. And there used to be a time where that was scary because I didn't like me. I didn't accept myself. I didn't love myself. This is like, well, that's another entire course or podcast episode. But because I've worked on my worth, my acceptance, at the end of the day, if it all fails, if they all leave, it's me, myself, and I. And I like myself. I actually like myself. I love myself. And if it all falls away, I'm okay with what's left. And I'm not sure a lot of people have done that work where they could, be okay if the dream doesn't come true or the goal doesn't get met. So just a thought.
Well, I would get asked that question a lot. When I first started doing this work, I think I was in my 30s, and people are like, do you believe any dream could come true? And there was a part of me that wanted to say, yeah. No. Like somebody would say, well, I want to be an opera singer and I can't carry a tune. Well, let's look at what's driving that dream. What is it who do you imagine you'll be, or what will you have when you're the opera singer? Oh, I'll be more self-expressive. Oh, okay. Well, let's explore that gateway then. I'm not the one to shoot down people's dreams or to tell them why they can't come true. I don't even like to be the one who says, are you being realistic? Because I do know, like, we have different parts, right? So we have a dreamer that says, I have a dream, and we have a doubter who says, don't even think about it. And if we turn the voice of the doubter down, we get the realist. The realist wants to know, what's the plan?
Right.
The realist wants to know, where are you going to get the time and where are you going to get the
Go ahead. Money. I thought you were going to say that. Yeah.
Yeah. Where are you going to get the time? Where are you going to get the money? But on a big dream or in the early phases of a dream, you may not have it all figured out. And, and yet, this is related to the project that I'm currently working on, where I wanted to help raise money for a film. And, my brain said, oh, put up a landing page, start a Kickstarter campaign. My heart said, we don't have time for that. And I'm like, well, my ego and parts of me are saying, the realist is like, you don't know anything about doing a movie. Like, what do you think? I'm like, yeah, well, I don't need to, because I'm partnering with someone who knows how to do it. But he needs what I have, which is to share my magic. And I did commit and I invested in this dream. And a week after I did, he got a huge grant. He said to me, that happened because of you. You're the fire starter. He gave me an executive producer credit. This is Louis Schwartzberg, guys, who produced Fantastic Fungi and The Gratitude Revealed. And I heard him speak, and his next project is on beauty. So, of course, my heart was like, oh, how can I help? And he needed millions of dollars. I didn't have millions of dollars, but I could help. And, and he said, I'm giving you an executive producer credit. And I'm like, why? I'm not giving you $1 million. And he said, well, you're the fire starter. And then a week, which I love so much.
Who are you?
So, you're the door opener, the gate opener, right? And fire starter. I never thought of myself that way. And then something really incredible happened. He started talking to me about being the dream queen, which was a part of myself that I thought I had left behind 8 years ago. And there was something about seeing the value. And we know this, we are the sum of all parts. Everything we've done, everything we would celebrate, and everything that we would even mourn or grieve has made us uniquely us. But there was something about him seeing me as that and welcoming that and needing that part of myself that was incredibly healing for me. And I had this image. I even remembered that I went to college for television and film production because I wanted to use the media to make a positive impact. And I literally, Fabienne, had this image of these old parts of myself walking back into myself, the film producer, the dream queen, the fire starter. Like, as you're talking about, when the dream doesn't happen, what are we left with? I'm adding into this, and it's I haven't talked about it before, so I'm still sorting out the words as they're coming out of my mouth, but I'm so honored to be sharing it with you and with your tribe in this moment, because it's been profound to honor and welcome back in the disowned and lost parts of myself. I've done a lot of shadow work where I bring back parts that I didn't know about, but these are parts not only did I know about, but that I was intimately identified with and that I had intentionally walked away from for 8 years or more to see who I was and who I could become. So I'm kind of gobsmacked that like, oh, well, welcome back.
There is this idea that you've been preparing for this moment all your life.
You've said that to me.
Mm.
And about yourself as well. And
Yeah.
and such an important, please say more. I just love hearing you talk about that. What would you
Just
say?
this idea that I really believe that nothing is by accident. Everything that happens to us in life is preparing us. And I always say to people, like, embrace even the things that you would never wish to happen again, because they will be pieces of the puzzle. They will be a stitch in the quilt. You just don't know what the puzzle is going to look like. You don't know what kind of quilt you are quilting. So just, just kind of that surrender piece and just allowing things to happen. A big distinction from our conversation today has been to that dream is not just a noun and then not just a verb, but an identity. And that's really moving to me. I want to be a dreamer. And I know that people have said in the past, oh, you're such a dreamer, as if it's like a negative. And I'm like reclaiming, like, I am a dreamer. And I want you, as you're listening to this gorgeous woman, Maya, like, allow yourself the permission to not just dream or have a dream, but to walk confidently as a dreamer in your life, because you deserve it. Maya, you are amazing. I would love to have you back. I mean, I get to have you whenever I want, but I want one day to have you back here. You offered an incredible gift to the Fabienne Show listeners. I'm really moved. It's highly valuable. Would you please share what your gift is?
I'm honored to. Thank you for the invite. Simply go to dreammastery.com. Pretty simple, dreammastery.com, and you'll be opting in for a video course to help you know yourself as a creator. I will talk more about the distinction about moving from how to achieve dreams to living your life this way. And as part of the free gift, you'll get a PDF of the dream book that I mentioned, where you can explore your life's purpose and do some work around limiting beliefs. So dreammastery.com. There's no upsell. It's just a gift, and I hope you enjoy it.
I'm going through the series. I'm going to be going through this. I did buy the book, The Dream. I'm going to tell everybody about this. You guys, this is so valuable because Maya has literally been living this her entire life and taught millions of people how to. So thank you for that. Maya, if there was a parting words of advice, and I know, like, you're on your 4th career and more dreams are developing, what would be your words of advice for us, please?
So interesting that this siren is going by, like, pay attention, right? Such a good parting question. I would simply say this, that it's never been a better or more important time to really listen to your heart and to act on the dreams that are important to you. So don't wait any longer. Ask good questions like, what is mine to do? Or what is the dream that you've had in your heart, that it's time to stop just dreaming about it and thinking about it and to take action on it.
Oof, that went right to my heart. Thank you, dear Maya. I love you.
I love you so much.
So much. Thank you for giving us so much to think about and to act upon today. Thanks a lot.
Congratulations on your podcast. A dream come true.
It is a dream come true. Thanks. Mwah.